The virtual Ethernet module provides the data plane that is inserted in every ESXi hypervisor. It's really just software. I hate to just demean it to that, but that's all it really is. We're pushing software to each ESXi host, so that's pushed to the hypervisor itself, and ultimately it relies on the supervisor module to gain its configuration. So every VEM is associated with an ESXi host. It's licensed on a per socket basis, so if your ESXi host has 2 sockets, it'll need 2 licenses. If it has 4 sockets, it'll need 4 licenses, but there's still only one instance of VEM running on the hypervisor. When we look at that virtual switch chassis, underneath each VEM is some version of ESXi that's ultimately running underneath the covers and providing the VEM process, or daemon, to run within the hypervisor. Again, it's just the data plane for data forwarding, meaning we can lose the supervisor modules, and we'll continue forwarding data at the hypervisor level. What we won't be able to do is change the configuration or add new VEMs to the virtual switch chassis, but that's okay. The really important part is that we don't stop forwarding data. There's no data that passes through the VSM from a virtual machine perspective. They're not reliant on the supervisors to forward data. Underneath the hood within ESXi, what we're doing is we're replacing that native switch module that's included within the hypervisor and inserting the Cisco 1000V virtual Ethernet module. Once that's installed, the host registers with the supervisor module and just looks like a remote line card. But instead of looking like a normal line card where it says, I'm a 48 port 10 gig card or whatever it may say, it'll say, well, I'm an ESXi hypervisor, I'm running version 5. Whatever, this is my module number, and so on and so forth. I kind of know what you're thinking, right? How hard is this thing to install? Because we're talking about VMware, you may not be all that comfortable with VMware, and you might think, wow, do I have to know Linux or VMware ESXi, or what do I need to do? Fortunately, you can rest easy. Installing the Ethernet modules is magic. It's ridiculously easy. And that's because we can use something called the VMware Update Manager, which is commonly just called VEM, to deploy the Ethernet modules. The neat thing is, you can do this in advance, but you don't have to. What you can do is just connect VEM to your ESXi hypervisors by way of vCenter, and whenever you add a host to the 1000V, the 1000V will contact VEM and say, hello, I need the Ethernet module, it's not installed, I specifically need the Ethernet module for version whatever it may be. I have highlighted in the graphic below my VEM installation in my lab, and you can see that it has all these different versions of the Ethernet module ready to go for whenever they may be needed. So let's say I add one of my hosts to a 1000V install by way of adding that host to the Nexus 1000V distributed switch. The VSM will contact VEM and say, okay, I've got a new host. I need an Ethernet module for version 4.2.1 SV2 2.2. Do you have it? And the VEM instance will say, yep, I've got that version for ESXi version 5.5, 5.1, and 5.0. Which one do you need? And it'll go out and it'll grab the software, it'll automatically install it, there's no need for maintenance mode on the host, it'll deploy and verify that the software is installed, and then you're done. So there's really nothing you have to do to install the VEM. Although, like I said, you're perfectly fine to go ahead and bake it into the ESXi host early if you would like, but it's not necessary. Now, if you plan to use line commands, or perhaps you're building your own ISO image of ESXi, you might want to go ahead and put the VEM into that image. So you can use things like local or remote commands using ESXCLI. You can use that locally on the hypervisor or pass that command remote. And the command string that you're looking for is ESXCLI software vib install -v and then the path to the vib that's somewhere shared to the host. At that point, it'll find the vib, it'll install it, and it'll let you know, okay, I'm installed. And unlike more common vib files, there's no need to put the host in maintenance mode because we're not replacing anything, we're just adding some new functionality to the hypervisor. If you don't have Update Manager, or you just want a copy of the Ethernet module for an ISO image or something like that, you can actually go to VMware's website, not Cisco's. I know it kind of feels weird, right? And you can download a copy of the Ethernet module by having nothing more than a My VMware account. So you would go to My VMware, you'd log in, you're going to go to the download product section, and I've got the path listed out for you here. So I just went to the vSphere installs, I found the 1000V virtual Ethernet modules for vSphere 5.5 because I'm running 5.5, and then you can download whatever version you need. This is very common for using within ISO images, or if you want to seed the Ethernet module installation into your hypervisors prior to actually deploying the 1000V. If you don't have a My VMware account, maybe you're more responsible for the Cisco side of things, and you have a counterpart on the more hypervisor, server, VMware side of things, go talk to your person that has a My VMware account. With pretty much any level of access, they should be able to go in there really quickly and download the Ethernet module for you. And perhaps that'd be a good time to have a discussion and say, look, if we're going to use the 1000V going forward, I'd really appreciate it if you would deploy an update manager server. Chances are they already have one and you just might not know about it. Since we're on the topic of Update Manager and deploying VIB files and things like that, I thought it would be good to clear up the confusion around what the heck is this offline bundle and what is this VIB and how do they work. So here's a really quick way we can describe what both of them do and how to identify both of them, because quite frankly, this confuses people in the VMware world and in the Cisco world. So the first one's the offline bundle. This is what we would use with Update Manager. So if you want to put something into Update Manager yourself, you're going to need an offline bundle, or you're going to need to provide an offline bundle for whoever's managing your Update Manager server. The offline bundle is always a compressed zip file that contains things like an index.xml file and some metadata. So let's take a look at the Ethernet module for the Cisco 1000V in an offline bundle. Here's the guts of one. It has the VIB20, which contains the VIB file. It has the Cisco metadata zip file. It has an index and a vendor index. And this is all contained within the offline bundle zip file. The zip file may not say offline bundle, but if it contains data like what I'm showing you in the orange box below, you know you've found the correct offline bundle, and it will be inside of a zip file. The other file is the VIB, and that's just fancy for the vSphere installation bundle. So now you know what that is. It's a single file that ends with .vib. So it's pretty easy to spot a VIB file, and it looks like this. This is actually the latest and greatest Cisco VEM VIB file that's available at the time of this recording. And you can see it's a whole lot of data: Cisco bootbank, Cisco VEM version 164, ESX, and then it has the version of the VEM that we're deploying. That's the 421 SV2 220.vib. And look at the size, it's 3.5 megabytes. It downloads very quickly. So if you want to use Update Manager, you need that orange file that I'm showing you at the top. It's a zip file that's used with Update Manager, and it's an offline bundle. And if you want to deploy something directly onto the host, you're going to need that VIB file, which lives inside of the offline bundle in that VIB20 folder.